Imagine a drag queen. Not an actual one, just like the vague form of one. What do they look like? More importantly, what do they act like? When they walk, what body part do they lead with? And what does that tell you about them? How do they talk? Not just pitch, but what personality comes through in their words? John Mulaney is one of the best hosts to ever play the SNL game, isn't he? Maybe that comes from a deep knowledge of how Saturday Night Live works from his long stint as a writer. Some of it is his natural charisma, and a lot of it is his comedy writing skills. He can bring the best out of his writing partners. Think of Oh Hello on Broadway. I haven't consumed much Nick Kroll, but John Mulaney certainly made something special with him. During one of his gigs as a host, Mulaney donned drag for a sketch where he played a drag queen waitress at a brunch. The sketch's premise is that Mulaney is catty to most of the diners, except for one, whom he genuinely insults on a deep, personal, spiritual level. It's a great sketch. For those of you who aren't well versed in gay slang, perhaps you're a total top or bottom, Mulaney's character was reading the other characters. Reading is roasting with a limp wrist. That way you spill the tea. Yes, I am proud of that sentence. Yes, it was rather late. Another excellent SNL sketch features the Grand Supreme herself, RuPaul, doing an out-of-drag story time hour where she taught children how to read by making fun of book covers. Not to treat you like an idiot, but RuPaul is the host of RuPaul's Drag Race. Shocking, I know. You clicked on this video and you didn't know that? Wow. It's a drag competition reality show, and why am I explaining this to you? There are certain challenges, both mini and maxi, that appear on every season. There are two really popular challenges. They tend to be my favorites as well. Snatch Game, Justice for Big Ange, and the Reading Challenge. Sometimes you get really excellent performances and jokes. Sometimes you get iconically terrible ones. Sometimes you unfortunately get ones that are entirely middle of the road in an unmemorable way. I know some people get tired of the recurring challenges, but I personally love both the Reading Challenge and Snatch Game. A well-constructed roast is amazing. And how can you watch Ben de la Creme and Jinx do Snatch Game and not love that challenge? The characters in the Mulaney sketch went there expecting to be read. They're like hecklers at a Bianca Del Rio gig, but less desperate. When I asked you to imagine a vague drag queen, I'd say it's a good bet you imagined her as catty. She has fun barbs, nice wit, and she's fierce hunty. Yes. I don't mean she's serving looks, stunting pretty. She's the bitch from New York City. I mean she's a bit aggressive. She reads quick and often. Sometimes her reads aren't funny. They're not really jokes. They're barbs. Stabs. I suppose they stop being reads. They become insults. Where is that line? I quite like Drag Race. I think it's a show filled with talented people showing off the beauty and strength of queerness. I love the discussions on gender, sexuality, and race it has and continues to spark. It gave us Sasha Velour rose petals, Dusty Ray Bottom's discussion of conversion therapy, Mo Hart talking about religion, Vanjie. Because I like the show and I love performance art, I want to talk about Drag Race. I could talk about my hot takes or favorite moments, but there are a bunch of channels that do that. Instead, I want to talk about Cruelty. First Emmy, smoke breaks. During All Stars 8, boo boo, I know, tomatoes, tomatoes. The queens put some lesbians in drag. I think it's inherently interesting for a more butch woman to put on femme drag. Insert ContraPoints talking about butch turfs and the fight against femininity equaling pretty, equaling dainty, equaling what it means to be a woman. There's a whole lot of gender exploration and political commentary going on. It can dip into the early 2000s, hey, she was pretty all along trope. It can be played for laughs in a sort of man in a dress is funny way. Think femme flamboyant Georges going mask for the roast on All Stars 9. It can be a form of empowerment and reclamation, I can do this, but I do not have to. Or people use this concept of me to attack me. It no longer will damage me. Speaking of reclamation, the lesbians strike up a chat with the gays about slur usage. F words and D words get thrown about a lot. Fashion and damn, Nina should have been Black China. No, but the slurs typically used for gay men and lesbian women. It is a bit more complicated than that. You know, the F slur gets thrown out at pretty much every LGBT person, though it is most prominently used for gay men. Both are hurled at gender nonconforming straight cis people. The lesbians talk about coming to terms with the word and how they came to a space of reclamation or identifying with it. One says that, like queer, she feels it encompasses her politics as well as her sexuality. No, we're not about to talk about the whole weirdo, you can only be queer if you're radical thing. That's for a different time. They ask how the queens feel about lesbians using the F slur. The queens ask about how the lesbians feel about gay guys saying the D slur. Conversations on slurs and reclamation are always very interesting to me. By interesting, I mean deeply depressing. I've been called the F slur a couple of times. The ones that stick out in my memory are once when I was walking back to my dorm in college from the first Pride celebration in my city that I lived in at the time. I'm from the South, so Pride is in October because it's too damn hot in June. The second time, I was walking out of a theater after a performance of Spring Awakening where I was providing the percussion. Both times, it was a group of young-ish men in a truck speeding by me on the road when I was alone. Both times were kind of scary. I don't really feel any shame. Been there, done that. So 2009 to 2015 of me. Oh, gee, thanks, Obama. I'm a fat. Whoop-de-doo. Who cares? I have no problem identifying with that part of myself. I have no problem calling myself that. I don't, however, like being subjected to homophobia. Shocking, I know. More news at 11. Speaking of 11, sometimes a sexy chat that's going at a 10 can go up to an 11 when the F slur gets introduced. Not to be too open and honest about myself on the internet, but I don't mind a little bit of degrading language. Just don't be mean to me. I will cry, and like not in a sexy way. Slur usage in the bedroom can be a form of reclamation. That word is no longer an insult. It's hot. It can be a degradation kink. It can be a submissive thing. It can be wordplay. Oftentimes, you'll find it's a form of sublimation where negative thoughts, fears, or desires are transformed into sexual energy in order to remove their negativity. You know, I have some trauma around this word. Sexualizing it makes it and the trauma easier for me to handle or pack away into some box I don't have to deal with. I have some internalized homophobia. Rather than deal with that, I'm going to transform those unacceptable thoughts into desire. Sublimation. You might be thinking, okay, sure, I've learned you're a desperate whore. Thank you. Though it's pronounced good boy. But what does that have to do with Drag Race? Quite a bit, actually. Here's a question. If someone calls you a slur, intending for it to be an insult, what are they doing? Are they reclaiming the word? Obviously not. They're weaponizing bigotry. Extremely online people like to pretend someone's identity changes this, but no, it doesn't. A gay person using the F slur as a slur is still just a person weaponizing homophobia. Reclamation requires transforming the word. When a gay guy calls his friend the F slur, it's either empowering, joking, or sexual. Reclamation requires defanging. Empowerment wears the fangs as a necklace. Joking puts them on your forehead while you go, oh, I'm the devil, I'm gonna get you. Sexualization is replacing the actual fangs with retractable vampire teeth because no one literally wants their throat torn out. If the fangs remain, it's just homophobia. I go over this in far more detail in my video over Noah Schnapp. We go over the F slur and the N word, what reclamation is and what it isn't, and how members of a minority will sometimes weaponize bigotry to signal that they are a good minority, and the person they're using slurs against is a bad minority. So if you're going to be a bigot, you should target the bad one who deserves it. I have a video about supposed leftists and the resurgence of the R word. People in the comments of that video got very mad at me for suggesting that it's bad to be a bigoted asshole but leftistly because they care more about the performance of cruelty than anything else. I wonder if that'll be a theme for this video. Wow. Foreshadowing. The shade cast by an uncut person. In the Noah Schnapp video, I talk about one of the queens from Drag Race. Selena S. Titties, annoyed by the critiques given by Ross Matthews, upset with fans being cruel and more, called him a fat. Now, to be clear, Selena has apologized for this. She and Ross are good. I am not trying to cancel her. Drag Race fans seem incapable of discussing when queens have had missteps without either taking up pitchforks or accusing you of stabbing someone with said pitchfork over and over again. It's an exhausting ass group of people. Over on the Drag Race subreddit, some people express an aversion to this. Using the F slur in a moment of anger while insulting someone feels like simply using a slur. Others got all up in arms about how drag queens have a right to use the F slur in a derogatory manner. I wonder if there isn't a feedback system where toxic fans celebrate people being cruel, and this leads to people who rely on said fan support getting crueler while being applauded for that so they can receive more support and continue making a living. For instance, people clapped when she clapped back at an annoying Drag Race fan slash troll insulting her runway package on season 15 by calling him an ugly little. She's not the only Drag Race alum to do this, though. Candy Muse gets a lot of hate from the fandom because if there is one thing Drag Race fans hate, it is drag queens. I believe the context of this tweet is that Candy was wading into the Kimchi Eureka drama in May 2024. In response to someone being annoying in her comments, as Drag Race fans often are, Candy said, "Babes, I have a fat-ass bank account. I can care less about what you little f***s on Twitter don't agree with." Now, obviously, the most offensive thing Candy said here was, "I can care less," when the phrase is, "I couldn't care less." Honestly, though, I think she's right. She could care less. If she cared less, she probably wouldn't be calling people the F slur that way. Drag Race girlies don't just reserve the arrows of weaponized homophobia for judges on the show or annoying fans. They let them loose at any hashtag bad gay. An annoying gay TikTok creator decided to test a makeup brand by painting his entire face black. Was that a good choice? Nope. Was it racist? Probably, yeah. Did he deserve to be called out for it? For sure. In her critique of him, though, Robin Fierce made sure to call him a Was that relevant? Nope. Did it add to the critique? No. Was it just using a slur because a certain segment of people believe bad gays deserve slurs? Yeah, that's what was going on here. The show itself has had to change over the years. In the early seasons, the noise telling the girls Rue was about to enter said some transphobic stuff. The mini challenge on episode 2 of season 5 is gone because one of the songs they were lip syncing to had a transphobic slur on the title. The T slur used to get regular usage. To the show's and RuPaul's credit, they have come around. Trans contestants are welcomed and loved, as they should be. I'm looking forward to season 1 of RuPaul's Landon Cider's Drag of Thrones, where drag king contestants vie for their place on the Iron Throne but make it gay. Contestants don't get asked to sashay away, but rather get executed by the Kingmaker. You still have design, comedy, acting, lip sync challenges, and all of that. Have Maddie Morphosis on, but only as the voice of blow up doll Daddy Morphosis, who sits on the judging panel the entire season, staring blankly out into the dangerous void. Nothing's more masculine than that. Instead of the Hall of Fame for All Stars, you could get transformed into a dragon. It would be a good time. I would like it to happen. Since we're talking about the show, though, second Emmy, the show. Don't worry, I'm not about to rehash the same production shenanigans Green Gay, Jack Fed, and that twink runner I have covered. Instead, I've got a serious question for you. What do you think fans of Drag Race are fans of? Season 7 of All Stars was the all-winners season. It was non-elimination and there wasn't much drama, at least not that made it to air. Instead, we spent the entire time watching talented people have fun and show off their artistry. In my opinion, All Stars 7 is by far the best season of the show. Plenty of people despise that season. The most common complaint I've seen, outside the usual ones about who should have won, is that it was boring because there wasn't enough drama. So, are Drag Race fans of drag? Drag Race is a reality show, so it makes sense that plenty of people who watch it were or are first and foremost fans of reality TV. That means messy people being messy. Or, more accurately, people performing messy characters for a camera. I didn't watch Drag Race at all until All Stars 7 started airing, then I binged it so that I could catch up in time before the finale. I waited for two reasons. The first was that I was probably dealing with a bunch of internalized homophobia and desire to not identify with that segment of the community. I am and always have been a more reserved, calm person. I'm not particularly masculine or feminine, but I'm certainly not flamboyant. Maybe it's the depression. The second was that my only real knowledge of the show beforehand was from clips of Untucked. Untucked is the companion show to Drag Race, where the queens sip on alcohol and hang out after critiques. Or if you're safe, during critiques. The guest judges poke their heads in, the queens talk about their feelings, they read each other and the judges and everyone on the planet. It tends to be where the massive reality show fights occur. I cannot stand that shit. I watch Drag Race because I love theater. I don't care about reality TV. If I wanted to watch people shout at each other and get really annoying, I would put on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm glad they're separate shows because I would not watch Drag Race if Untucked was included in the actual episodes. Drag Detective has a video going over Untucked and lamenting that it's not as messy now as it used to be. There aren't as many fights. You're forced to listen to guest judges you don't really know talk about the importance of LGBT rights and drag. And you're like, yeah, we got that. We're watching Drag Race. Queens aren't as drunk as they used to be. Derek claims Untucked is boring now. So, maybe I should actually go give it a chance and watch some of the new episodes. He suggests if it's not going to be messy reality TV with people yelling at each other, they should maybe go ahead and replace it with What You're Packing, the interview series Michelle Visage does with each of the queens after they get eliminated. I actually kind of like that idea. But as far as the guest judges go, I want to suggest the solution isn't really to keep them away, but to encourage them to actually converse with the queens about the episode, about fashion, about art and creating, about what it's like to be famous, and how to handle the life they're about to step into. What's interesting to me about this video is that Derek claims fans ruin Untucked because they need to grow up and enjoy the drama of people yelling at each other. Okay, that's actually flattening his position quite a bit. He attaches this to the fans who take any excuse to be cruel to the queens. Don't worry, we will talk about that later. It does feel, though, like some people are upset that there are fans of the show who don't care about the drama and messiness. People like me aren't fans of reality TV. I've seen clips from Untucked fights and I found them to be insanely annoying. That leads me to ask, though, does Drag Race's position as reality TV lend to moments of cruelty? On season 15, when we hit the top 5, RuPaul asked who should go home and why. Very popular question. People love it when it's asked. Lex Noir London went down the line talking about how great everyone's drag was, except for Lucy LaDuca's. You've probably seen this clip. It went viral. Was that a good reality TV moment? I guess. People were entertained by it. Is Lux a bad person for being a dick on a TV show? How should I know? I cannot stress enough that reality TV is not real. The name is a misnomer. These people are playing characters. Yes, those characters are often a version of themselves. Sometimes they are who they portray, but you shouldn't really assume that. It's theater. Being theater, though, doesn't mean you aren't allowed to dislike the character someone plays. I didn't think the moment was cunty in the gay way, but cunty in the dick way. Some of the girls on the show are there to make good television, as people say. I think they're all there to make good television because they all believe in the quality of their own drag and that itself would provide for a good viewing. Whatever. When people say that, they tend to mean, though, people are there to make dramatic moments, be a bit of a dick and cause some conflict, go viral, give people the interesting fights they want. As such, they manufacture these types of moments of performative cruelty. Because there's not as much of that per se going on in the current era of the show, these moments are all that the yes drama people get to cling to. So the manufacturers get a bunch of praise for behaving that way. Then they also get a bunch of hate from the people who are like, how dare you? You must be a bad person. Then the groups hating and praising them start to fight each other, almost as if none of them gave a shit about the show or the queen at all, and this was all just a big pretext to get into fights online. I think we need some time to think before we tackle that, though. Yo! Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do a little share if you feel like it. Join me over on Patreon. You get these early, you get some vlog content, you get some looks at my art stuff. We can just do a little chatty chat. Be nice to each other in the comments. I will actively delete you if you're just being mean and an asshole to anyone. I have some poetry collections out on Amazon, including Butterfly Snuff and a Museum of Art and Eggs. I'm really proud of them, so please go check those out. They're also anywhere that you get your ebooks. Tune in next time. Best of luck with whatever you're doing in life. Have a good one. Third Emmy. Starbucks. Time for an ad break. I'm just kidding. I have under 500 followers. They're all my besties, though. Hi, bestie. Oof. Drag Race Twinsies Sugar and Spice did an ad for Starbucks. Finding sugar and spice in coffee? Likely place for them to be. Bzing! This led to them getting dragged up and down social media by fans, people who don't care about drag or drag race, and their fellow queens. People were incredibly angry because how dare you support Starbucks when it was being boycotted for supporting Israel as Israel was harming Palestinians. Wait, what's that? The Starbucks boycott was largely bullshit, cooked up by idiots online who did zero research, got incredibly angry when presented with facts, and was primarily used as a reason for attacking others. I have a video talking about the Starbucks boycott. I found it dumb back then. I continued to find it so. Boycott it when the union asks you to? Don't make shit up. Making shit up harms your cause. It makes it clear that you don't actually care. You care about performing anger. Drag Crave tweeted out that the two disappointed in the new ad because they were bought by the bullshit. Dawn from season 16 went after the girls. She claimed you shouldn't accept money from a company funding genocide. I mean, yeah, fair. Only when people pointed out that Starbucks was doing no such thing, Dawn said, oopsies, my point still stands though. Her point being hatred towards people based on a lie? Apparently buying into an internet conspiracy made to fuel anger as pretend activism is a perfectly valid reason to attack people. Dawn would go on to apologize for, not knowing what she was talking about. Candy Muse and Hershey Liqueur Jete also got some digs in on the twins because they too thought the Starbucks boycott was real and sensible. Unfortunately, ladies, 'twas not. You got duped. Days later, Candy responded to Mistress Isabel Brooks saying, "Sister, make sure you teach your children what a boycott is." The boycott cooked up by people experiencing a shared delusion online for the purpose of feeling better about mass bloodshed that should make you feel bad, by giving them an opportunity to be rude to random people online instead of actually doing anything to better the world or end said bloodshed. Of course, it wasn't simply the queens behaving like this. In fact, most of the vitriol came from fans of the show who relished in the chance to take the twins down a peg, as it normally goes with Drag Race fans. The fans were far more vicious than most of the queens have ever even approached being at any point in time. After all of the sugary drinks, you might die. Before you do, I think we still need to answer that question from before. What are Drag Race fans even fans of? Fourth Emmy. Morris done got rigged up. A lot of the fun of Drag Race is talking about drag in the episodes and who you thought did well. One thing that concerns me in regards to the fandom is how many of them simply don't act like drag, and its many performances and avenues for expression are an art. Think about the lip syncs for your life. Do you have any controversial opinions on them? Personally, I thought Plasma won both of her lip syncs against Maya in season 16. My mom thought Peppermint ate Sasha Velour up in the final lip sync for season 9. If you have a view like that, people will often call you delusional. To which I have to ask, do you think these are objective competitions with knowable correct answers? If so, you don't think of drag as art, or you don't know what art is. Or at least, you don't think of lip syncs as performance art, but that's what they are. Loud fans of Drag Race can be very confident in their opinions about the right and wrong way to be a drag queen, and the right and wrong ways to tackle a segment of performance, writing, etc. The show does too. People are able to recognize that Drag Race has a bias towards high femme, high stupid drag. A lot of the discourse of season 17 has been people complaining that Drag Race doesn't treat well alternative queens who do specific makeup. Think of Dusty Ray with her dots, or any of the queens whose whole thing is being some sort of elf or demon. How dare RuPaul or Michelle tell these girls the proper way to do their art. But then these same fans turn around and throw hatred at the girls they don't think are performing drag the way that they should. Sticking with season 17, a lot of people threw shit at Lana Jarret for her swimwear look. Now, personally, I don't find this all that exciting, but I also think she looks amazing. There's something about the way she paints her face that I'm always going to enjoy. Drag Detective has a lot of unrigging season so and such videos where he shows how he and his followers agree and disagree with each other and the judges. Drag is an art form. It is not objective. Almost every single season, there is a big kerfuffle about how the winner shouldn't have won. They aren't deserving of the crown. Deserving is an interesting word. These people are never talking about morality, though, or even hard work. They're talking about their artistic and social preferences. Did the winners deserve to win? Sure, just as much as anyone else. Should they have won? That doesn't really mean anything. People hear win and assume it means objective fact. This same problem hounds award shows. When the Grammys come around, everyone starts talking like Album of the Year actually means this is undeniably the best album released in the time frame. The others were worse. Well, no, not really. Even if it was, which it isn't, the point of an award show is not the awards, it's the celebration of the art form and the artists. Drag Race isn't really about who wins the crown, even though, yes, that is the underlying plot of the season. Art is about more than plot. Drag Race is about the art of drag and the artists and the cast. In my opinion, there was never a better showcase of artistry on the show than All Stars 7. I love to see how these artists work. I like non-elimination formats because I like getting to see drag artists celebrate and perform their art. I liked All Stars 9. I don't really care about reality TV. I find the forced drama incredibly boring at best and actively annoying at worst. TV too, though, is an art form. Editing is an art. Story producing is an art. I thought Global All Stars was a fine season. I went into it expecting it to be horrible given all the discourse and the reactions, but I watched it and thought it was fine. It was fine. Alyssa was a fine winner. By the end, it seemed right even for her to win. My biggest complaint was I thought Pythia won the second design challenge and she probably won Snatch Game. It goes to show that good TV is also not an objective thing. The people who want the show to be messier aren't wrong. My dislike of that idea also isn't wrong. Right and wrong is an entirely incorrect framework for this conversation. What form would you like the show to take? Ask after an opinion. It's not a standardized test. The problem is that many fans engage with Drag Race in an unhealthy manner. They engage with it like fandoms often do, as a pretext to perform cruelty. Fifth Emmy, the fans. One of the problems with pointing out any poor behavior by any of the queens, whether on or off the show, is that the Drag Race fanbase is super online. Being super online, they're quick to build up ravenous fevers and furious mobs. A queen makes a mistake like humans tend to do, and suddenly you have thousands of people shouting at her and telling her how horrible of a person she is, how bad she is at her art, and how everyone hates her. Even super thick-skinned people can easily get harmed if a mob aims to cut them in the same spot endlessly. The Trixie Mattel tactic of mostly staying off the internet is really one of the only ways to stay sane as a public figure in the age of social media. This is by no means relegated to this fandom. Lindsay Ellis is a video essayist and novelist who was chased off both Twitter and YouTube by people dogpiling on her. Her sin was comparing the Disney Dragon movie to the Nickelodeon magic show. As often happens, well-intentioned individuals were swallowed up by a mountain of hate. Beyond that, even well-intentioned critique, when piled on endlessly, becomes overwhelming for the recipient. If you're incapable of knowing when not to add your voice to something, you are too irresponsible with your platform, even if it is small, to be using it. Take my criticisms of the Starbucks girlies who jumped on a hate train. Do I think you should go and critique them and hound them on social media? Should you bring this up in the future if they have another stumble? No, that's weird as fuck. What the fuck is wrong with you? There's a reason why in the credits of my videos, when I'm not talking about politicians, I tell people not to go and harass anyone. Harassment does nothing except make the harasser feel good for performing a moment of holier than thou cruelty. Good faith is not always enough either. If we're talking good faith and bad faith, we do have to mention an elephant in the room. An elephant who is not wearing earrings and so is unfortunately not doing drag. You might have noticed that in this video about Drag Race and Cruelty, I haven't mentioned racism. That would be a massive oversight on my end. Who receives the most vitriol from the fans? Queens of color. The performance of gender is wrapped in the thorns of race. Much of the history of racism is the history of misogyny. Black people especially have been demonized by people of my complexion as being incorrectly gendered. Do you want to know why blackface was so popular for a time? Not with audiences, but with performers. It wasn't merely racism, it was about gender. Yes, I'm about to put my theater degree to use with the caveat that I am speaking quite broadly, I know. Men in theater, as in life, were expected to be reserved and stoic, manly, masculine. As women were allowed on the stage, men's chance to be flamboyant and emotional and romantic and submissive went out the door for a bit. So then, to access flamboyancy and femininity, they would put on blackface. Suddenly, they could tap dance and cry and have outbursts. They could make a fool of themselves through racist caricatures. They enforced the idea that black men weren't really men and black women weren't really women. They were incorrectly gendered. Now, obviously, those underlying beliefs were a bunch of insanely cruel horseshit. But we can thread that complicated massive history in theater to the complex experiences of black drag queens. When a black queen is critiqued for being too masculine, you do have to examine this history. Is this actually because she's performing more masculine and for some reason that's bad for a woman? Or is it because you perceive black women as being inherently masculine? Not only do queens of color have to deal with typical homophobia and transphobia and sexism, but this historical connection can lead to hatred from other people of color who view drag as a continuation of the history of blackface and other racist performances. The hatred is often harsher towards queens of color. This would be entirely incomplete without mentioning that. And it's also not a complete dive into it. There's so much further we could go into that trend. There's also a segment of fans who pretend to care about racism in the fandom, not to better fandom spaces or make the queens' lives better or improve the political landscape, but as just another weapon to attack people with over their opinions about art. Drag Race fans will often pick their favorite queen and then get into fighting matches online with fans of some other queen. Most of it is pretty arbitrary. They insult each other and the queens themselves. If the queen is too online, she might join in. People will post profile pics and be like, haha, you're ugly. We'll moralize about people's appearances. Slurs will get thrown out. Morals will get questioned. People will be cruel. Others will applaud their cruelty. That isn't really all that special. It's just Stan Wars, but on a smaller scale. When the Beehive and the Swifties punch each other on Twitter, do they really care about Beyonce or Taylor Swift or music at all? No. They care about punching. The person they stan is just a face on a flag under which they march for war. War is what they find entertaining. It's what they care about. When those types celebrate a drag queen's epic dunk, they care not about cleverness or reading. They don't watch the reading challenge and enjoy any of the wordplay. They care about blood being spilt. They are vampires we must stop feeding. So what are fans of Drag Race really fans of? Well, I would reckon that most, especially the less online ones, are fans of either reality TV or art, whether that's the art of drag, makeup, dance, theater, film, fashion, what have you. That's the majority. The majority are normal, nice people. There unfortunately exists another, louder mass. These are the ones who attack the queens and look for any chance they can get to be vicious. They aren't really fans of TV or art in general. They aren't fans of drag. They're fans of cruelty.